In this lesson, we're going to cover the eyedropper tool. The most basic function of the eyedropper tool is simply to copy stroke and fill attributes from one object so that we can then apply them to another object or group of objects. The eyedropper tool is over here, and the keyboard shortcut for this one is the letter I. Now grab the eyedropper tool and move it over some objects on your stage. You'll notice that the cursor changes. When we hover over a fill, we see a paintbrush. This tells us that if we click, Flash is going to sample the fill. If we hover over a stroke, we see a pencil, and likewise, if we click, we're going to sample the stroke. So let's start with the fill. Click, and you'll see that Flash automatically sends us to the paint bucket tool. This allows us to quickly apply that fill to another object. And we can keep going if we like. But notice, next to our cursor we have the padlock icon. By default, Flash selects Lock Fill. So I'll undo this and return to the eyedropper tool, and this time let's sample this gradient. With the Lock Fill modifier turned on, we can now quickly apply this gradient across a range of objects. Of course, we can always turn that off. I'll sample this again, only turn off the Lock Fill modifier, and this time the gradient is applied to each object individually. Okay, let's have a look at strokes now. Sample a stroke on the edge of an object, and this time we're sent to the ink bottle tool. And in very much the same way, all we have to do now is click on an object and the stroke is applied. Okay, so that is the basic operation of the eyedropper tool, but there are a few other things we can do with it. We can actually use it in reverse. If we grab the selection tool and then select an object, and then grab the eyedropper tool, anything we click will have its properties applied to the currently selected object. So I'll click on this fill. Automatically the fill is applied. This may not seem that useful, but actually I use it quite a bit. Another thing we can do with the eyedropper tool is sample bitmaps. Now I've got a bitmap on my stage here, and this is our friendly green ball. Again, it's in your work files if you're working from them. And the eyedropper tool works in two different ways depending on whether we have the bitmap broken apart or not. If it's not broken apart, the eyedropper tool will simply sample the color that's currently under the cursor. So, say if I click out here in the black area, and then click in this object here, I'll simply apply black. Now this will apply whether or not I have Lock Fill turned on. It'll turn everything black. Now let's undo that, and we'll sample some of the green. Same thing applies. Let's break this bitmap apart though. Select it and choose Modify, Break Apart. Now grab the eyedropper tool, click on the bitmap, and click on one of your objects. This is kind of cool because Flash will bitmap fill your objects and keep them in perspective. Remember though that this is a simple fill, so we can select this object and move it around and the fill remains. Now we are finished with the eyedropper tool, but just before we go, I'll show you a cool effect you can do using this. I'll just get rid of all the other shapes except for this one, and I'll get rid of the stroke around it. Then we'll turn this into a symbol by hitting the F8 key. We'll call this whatever for now, it doesn't really matter. And we'll take this and put it on its own layer. All I've done here is hit the keyboard shortcut for cut to start with, and then created a new layer, and then paste in place. So now we can animate this. Create a keyframe out at the end, and at the first keyframe, we'll move this over a bit and make it bigger. Now create some motion tween. And I'm sure you can see where I'm headed with this. Anyway, that's enough for this lesson. Move on to the next one.